Hey, Bill DeWeese here. I wanted to take a few minutes to have a heart to heart conversation with you regarding the value of voice talent. And it's a very controversial topic. And little did I realize when I was launching the upcoming course, VO Success Formula, vosuccessformula.com, which revolves around a friend of mine who's created a marketing system to be able to generate an additional $3,000 to $5,000 a month in voiceover income through Fiverr, working just an hour a day, that it would be like hitting the hornet's nest, stirring up a dust storm. I realize not everybody would necessarily appreciate it, but I really did not know the degree at which the feelings would be expressed about that program. And from both sides of the room, had a lot of people telling me how excited and how hopeful they were to be able to find something that would allow them to quickly ramp up to make many folks who are just struggling making money at all within voiceover, or those, of course, who want to add that additional several $1,000s a month of revenue to their stream. But also from a camp who feels that the idea of working for less than X number of dollars is really beneath the dignity of a voice talent, and beyond that, hurts the industry as a whole. One thing I do want to just briefly mention up front is that I don't think anybody suggesting that you can make $5,000 a month doing $5 gigs. And if you know anything about Fiverr at all, you probably do understand that there are ways to position yourself where you're actually getting paid for a lot more than that on a job. Like, for instance, it doesn't have to be $5 a job. It might be $5 a word, $5 a second, yada, yada, yada. And again, I'm just giving you some examples. But that aside, I wanted to address this whole idea of talent value. What is talent worth? And to address specifically this program, the vosuccessformula.com that I'm promoting that will be beginning next week. First of all, let me just say that early on in my career, I really had to make some decisions and have clarity on what it is I wanted to accomplish as a voiceover talent. Likewise, I had to have a clear vision and a sense of purpose in what I wanted to accomplish and what I was about as a voiceover coach as I began that journey a number of years ago. So the decisions that I make today from a career standpoint as a voiceover talent, and also in the way that I coach and help people build their careers, is done for very specific reasons with a very clear sense of mission and what I want to accomplish. From the very beginning as a voiceover talent, my goal was very simple. And I'm not saying it was simple to accomplish. I'm saying what I wanted to accomplish was a simple concept, which was to be able to generate a consistent and a consistent income that was enough money to take care of my family and I. Well, over the years, I make that and quite a bit more, but I've been able to do it consistently, and I've been able to do it without following the rules of what, for a lack of a better term, we'll call the voiceover establishment, meaning the way things have been done over the years, over the decades. Not that I am anti-establishment, because I'm not, but I'm a marketing person. My background, I'm an MBA background in not only teaching, but in the consulting arena with businesses. And so I think I have a unique understanding of business and how it operates and why businesses fail and why businesses succeed. And from early on, I had to make a decision whether I wanted to do what I did to impress what we'll call the voiceover community. In other words, is it more important for me to be liked and respected and admired by other voice talent? And by the way, I think if we're all honest, there's none of us that would not like to receive that kind of feedback from our colleagues. But I had to decide between that or whether my mission as a voiceover talent was to create a consistent, solid, repeatable, not to worry about on a weekly basis income. I chose the latter for the very specific reasons that I just mentioned, realizing that other people may not think that was, the most prestigious way or the coolest way or the way to look the best among your colleagues. But again, this was prior to voiceover. Early on in my career, I decided to do things for the reasons that I wanted to, as opposed to trying to impress, as opposed to trying to impress colleagues and others within the industries that I've worked in. So that's been my personal approach to voiceover. Again, not anti-establishment. There are many who have been able to create very successful careers following the established route, and I say more power to them. I'm happy for them. No sour grapes at all. It's just I chose to go a different way, and I've been very successful at that. Then let's talk about voiceover training. When I began the coaching and the training and the consulting route, my mission for me, I didn't really have to even think about it. I knew what really burned in my heart, and that was to empower and to educate and to inspire voiceover talent to be successful in terms of making money as a voiceover talent. Again, not necessarily to win awards, to have affirmation from their colleagues, to be the most popular within their social media circles, to be revered and respected and admired by their voiceover talent. It was simply to help them learn to be a business person as well as a talent, product and marketing, to be able to make income. And I've taken all this time to say that because I want you to understand why I do what I do, not from a voiceover standpoint. I mean, I'm sure you could care less, only how it relates to how I work with you possibly as a coach or the information that I put out to try to help you along the way. But the information I put out, the programs that I put out, the training, the events, it's all done for that purpose, to educate and to enlighten, inspire, to motivate you and to equip you to be able to be successful in making a consistent and sizable, hopefully, income as a voiceover talent. I don't need the affirmation of my colleagues to do this. Is it nice? Sure. But it makes no difference in how I operate my business or my goals. But you have to decide what you want. And that brings me to the point of the value as a voiceover talent. Number one, you have to decide what it is you want as a voiceover talent. If you want to seek the admiration and respect of others, to win the awards, to be on the red carpet at the events, blah, 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 you need to make sure then you're going to have to play to that crowd. If your only concern is making a good living as a voice talent, and by the way, I'm not saying you can't make a good living the other way, but if you want to grind it out as I have, because I found that to be the most efficient and effective way to build my career, then other people may look at you a little funny or a little awkward and not understand why you do the things they do. They may say things such as, what you do is really hurting the industry. For instance, I think there's a misconception that I promote or I advocate building your voiceover business by undercutting everybody else from a financial standpoint, by lowballing. First of all, that's not my position at all. I firmly believe that we all should get as much as we possibly can from the jobs that we do. I also firmly believe that you really cannot effectively legislate what those rates are because there are so many variables. It goes far beyond just talent. If it was just a matter of talent and price, it would make things so much simpler, but it's not. And simply because you lowball doesn't mean somebody's going to hire you. Just like if it's time for me to hire a plumber or a painter or whatever, just because they're the cheapest doesn't mean I want them plumbing in my house or painting in my house, because for me, the quality of what I get is as important. Not only the quality, but the service that I get. Do they do what they say? Do they show up? Do they do the work when they say they're going to? If there are things that need to be corrected afterwards, are they going to do that? And if so, how much is it going to cost me? There are a number of variables that go into determining value. So, but I do advocate getting as much as you can where you're at, whether that's $10 a spot because you're just starting and maybe you haven't developed the skill set or the marketing knowledge, or perhaps, there are other reasons beside this, or whether you're experienced and you can demand more. But I've always believed that most people can evolve and increase their value to their present customers as well as to new prospective customers that they present themselves to. So again, I hope that clarifies that issue and my stance on that. But let's talk about now more specifically the value, philosophically the value of a voiceover talent. We would all love to believe that that value is determined by us. And certainly, I think we should have a sense of what our value is, a realistic sense of what our value is in the marketplace, based on things like our experience level, our pedigree in terms of clients that we've worked with, our credits, Certainly how you're presented by the demos and the work that you've done, how easy you are to work with, how efficient you are in a recording session, because time is money in a recording session, and how you deal with clients. All of those things, and it's not an easy process, but those are things that have to be taken into consideration. And we all, I think, should have a sense of what our value is. But ultimately, and I've said this before, and I'm going to repeat it again, at the risk of sounding like I'm beating a dead horse, but value is ultimately and always determined by the customer. You're a consumer. You understand that. A store, a vendor can offer a product or a service for X dollars, and to them it's worth that, and maybe to others it's worth it too. But perhaps it's not worth it to you for a number of reasons. And in the business world in which we all operate as voiceover talent, return on investment is what reigns supreme. So in other words, you may want, let's just fill in the blank, $500 for, let's say, a 3-minute explainer video, which I think it's a fair price. Generally speaking, however, to a specific business or enterprise, they may never be able to see that kind of return on the investment of paying $500 for your voice, when maybe for their market and for their purposes, getting somebody on Fiverr or doing it themselves will serve just as well. Just because you're an artist, just because you're talented, doesn't mean that everybody holds you in the same regard and has the value for what you do. And again, I hope this makes sense. I just want you to understand the basic principle of economics and marketing, that value is determined ultimately by the customer. Not to say you shouldn't get as much as you can, but don't be offended when somebody's not willing to pay you the dollars you want, or don't be surprised when you can't get hired because perhaps you have not positioned and priced yourself fairly within the market. This may not make it easier for you, but this does lead, I want to really kind of cap this all up by talking about my philosophy specifically as it relates to all this I'm talking about. And whether you're working through Fiverr or you're doing direct marketing or through agents or whatever. And that is, I personally believe that you should enter the market where you're at from an experience and a talent standpoint with some coaching and preparation. That's one of the things I do, like when I'm working with a new client on a demo, whether they're experienced or new, I will train them and we'll get the demo together because that represents, it's a snapshot of them at that point in time. And if I work with them, it means they are marketable within a certain market or markets at that point in time. And over time, as they evolve, as I evolve, as you evolve, we should continue to seek higher and higher pay work. And again, I hope that clarifies, or at least helps to clarify, my position. And I hope that my philosophy and my strategy will help you. It's helped me immensely because the jobs that I took earlier on in my career, I don't take anymore simply because I can command more. But I couldn't command more when I first started. It took me a lot of years to be able to evolve where I'm at now, where I can get, considerably more on a consistent basis than I could early on. Let me address the Fiverr thing more specifically. There was what's been brought to my attention by several different people. There's an article or a post by voice talent Stephen J. Cohen. And I'm going to put a link to that article below. By the way, it's a very good article, and I would highly suggest that everybody read it. Because what it talks about, and this will give you a little insight into a certain philosophy regarding voice talent who are on Fiverr. Stephen apparently had a conversation with an advertising executive recently who made a comment about working with people on Fiverr to do some voiceover work, and he was very surprised to hear that, and he asked for an explanation. Long story short, this agency would hire Fiverr talent to do scratch vocals, essentially, for projects that weren't going to be used. One of the reasons is they really didn't want great voiceover because they didn't want it to overshadow the presentation that was being made to the client. So the idea was they would do scratch vocal work so that they could save the real work, and that's the word used, for the real talent, for the real artists. And they wouldn't have to bother them with doing these essentially audition type reads. This person went on to say that there were those within the advertising world who had essentially blacklisted people who are on Fiverr, made a list of names and said, we don't want to work with these people because it will hurt our brand. And so the response to many voiceover talent is, oh my gosh, well, I don't want to hurt my brand. So I totally I understand. I think, like I said, I think it's a great article, and I think it's good to understand that perspective. But let me give you my 2 cents worth on this. You have to seek clarity on what you want as a voice talent. If your goal is you ultimately believe that you will be making your living or want to make your living only doing the highest profile of work at the top tier, and that you will be, you only want to function through agencies and unions and all of that kind of thing, which nothing wrong with that at all. If that is your goal and that's what you're seeking to do, it will be a much, 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 much harder road than the one that I've taken, for example. But the payoff could be, unbelievable, which also means that it's high risk, very high risk, but yet can be very high reward. Then that's something you need to be considerate of and think twice. Personally, I think that the idea that people are actually keeping a list, and I don't doubt that they are, but that people are paying that close attention to you and me, I have a hard time totally buying into that concept. But again, for me, and if you want to follow the path that I have followed and continue to follow, my mission as a voice talent is to make a consistent and sizable income. I don't care whether it comes through an agency or an agent, talent agent, or whether it comes through a casting director. That's great. Or whether it comes direct from client. I have built my business in such a way that I am not dependent on any of those people for my career. So you have to ask yourself what you're willing to be held hostage to. And that may sound harsh, but that's the way I view it. If you're willing to be held hostage to that idea and to those people who you think might at some point be aware that you've worked on pay-to-play sites or on Fiverr, and you've done it for less than what are established rates, like union rates, then, by all means, don't do it. But if your goal is to actually make money sooner rather than later, and know that the odds are in your favor of making money, taking a lower risk, but can still have a very high reward, then I suggest that you really ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice for that? Because if you want the admiration of other voiceover talent, if you want to receive awards, and again, nothing wrong with that at all. Please understand, nothing wrong with that. If that's your goal, then that's the path you need to follow, and just be aware of the consequences of any choices that you might make. But if your path is and you don't care about that, you don't need the affirmation of, we'll call it, industry people. Because believe me, there are corners of the industry right now that do not like me. There are people that do not like me, or at least like what I do at all. But would I love for everybody to love me? Yes, I would. But at the end of the day, I know what I'm trying to accomplish, and I know what I must do to accomplish that. And ultimately, I don't care what they think, because I'm living my life, and I live a great life. I have very little to be concerned about, and I take great joy in helping others to do the same. So if you want to join me in the path, this type of path, where it's certainly much more of a independent path, where certainly more would be considered more of taking a trailblazer approach, and you may be doing it in the face of the establishment, of tradition. But again, it's a viable, and it's a highly there's much higher chance of being successful in this more business approach instead of the traditional approach. Then I invite you to continue to follow the information that I'm presenting as I try to help you to do that. And I certainly believe that this VO Success Formula program will be of great benefit to you. And you can get all the details at vosuccessformula.com, and we'll be launching that a week from Wednesday. So again, my intent is not to offend anybody. Whatever side of the fence you're on, I respect that. I just wanted to clarify my position only for the benefit of helping those who feel that they can be helped through that approach. That's the way I coach. That's the way I teach. And if you can use that and use it to your benefit, I certainly hope that you will. And I look forward to hearing of your success. Take care.